Hello, hello. So glad to have you here. So welcome to this webinar, Positive Impact webinar, the 3 phases of successful projects that make a difference and get you noticed. Now, if you're listening to this live, congratulations. There were only 100 places available on this live webinar, so congratulations on grabbing your spot. You're in good company. And if you are listening to this on the replay, then I will also be sharing with you ways that you can directly interact with me. And yeah, welcome whether you're here live or whether you're here on the replay. Really fantastic to have you with me. So before I start, I am going to whiz through just some quick pre-call instructions to really help you get the most out of our time together. You have put this time aside to invest in your career and in making your next project one that's really going to make a difference and get you noticed. And I want to make sure you get everything you need. The most powerful way that you can get the most out of this training is to interact directly. So first of all, turn off any other distractions. It can be really tempting to continue doing our other work when we're on a kind of online training, but I am here to say you could miss out on the very thing that's the most important thing for you, that little nugget that you need from today. So turn off your phone, put it on airplane mode, close down Skype, Facebook, email, anything that could take your attention away from your career development over the next hour or so. So, as I said, being interactive is a really powerful way of embedding what you're learning at a deeper level. There are going to be several points in today's session where I'll be asking you questions and opening up to Q&A to you. So you will get the most out of this training if you participate. And if you're live, actually, whether or not you're replay or live, other people will really benefit from what you ask and the questions you ask and the input that you share. So please do that. And I'm just going to tell you how to do that really easily because not everybody's familiar with this technology. So very, very quickly, you will see this little orange button arrow. So if you just click that, and you will expand the toolbar, then just scroll down to you see questions. You can expand that, and that will then give you the box, which means you can answer questions that I pose to you, and then ask questions when I open it up to Q&A. And you can also, I like doing this, you can kind of drag that and put it somewhere else on your desktop, so it's just at the point that you find is best for you. So if you are listening on the replay, of course, I still want you to get involved, get engaged, get interactive, and you can email me q&a@aligodding.com with answers to any of the questions, and of course with your questions for me. So great, let's get going. So first, the very first thing I like to do on these webinars is to get an understanding of who I have with me here on the training. So answer me this. Which best describes you? Are you someone who is ambitious and you recognise that to really perform at your best, you need to deliver results within the context of a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous environment? I think we can all agree that is just the world of work these days. But if you recognise that for you to really perform well, you need to be able to deliver in that context, let me know. You would be a number one. Or are you somebody that you're working for an organisation which is charged by constant change, which really can create an interesting business landscape to navigate? So if that's you, then just tap in, I'm a number 2. Or perhaps you work in a matrix organisation where just identifying your stakeholders and the dynamics between them can be really, really tricky. If that's you, then let me know. I'm just seeing some new people arrive, so I'm just going to say a quick hello to our new attendees. We've got George, we've got Joe, we've got Kim, Simon, Mandeep, Emma. Welcome to you all. I know we've started right on time, so you are perfectly poised to get the most out of today. So are you so far resonating with 1, 2 or 3, or perhaps you are somebody who loves professional development, and you would really like to have an approach that makes things enables you to differentiate yourself from the crowd, even when it feels like you're perhaps walking through treacle to get anything done. If that's you, then let me know. Or perhaps you are just ready to make an even bigger impact so that you can line yourself up for your next dream role, the one that you've got your eye on right now. So let me know which best describes you. Just tap it into the question box and I'll take a look and see who we have on the line with us. So I'm seeing a lot of ambitious people, fantastic, but who recognise that we're dealing with and we're working with some really interesting times right now. Yeah. I'm seeing 2 or 3 people saying there are 5, so they're getting ready to line themselves up for the next dream role. Brilliant. Hats off to you, my people. And I'm seeing just one, number 2. So this is one of the people who are kind of working in environments which is really charged by a lot of change. So wherever you're at, obviously I'm going to be making sure that I address your challenges, but I'll also be kind of leaning towards adding a little bit more info in. I'm just seeing a hand up, so I'm just going to check everything is all right. I can't see anything in the questions, so if anybody has a question, I think that was you, George, if your hand is up, just drop me a note in the questions and I will address any needs that you have. So moving on, what we're really going to look at today is we're going to be looking at the 3 common mistakes that can doom a project before it's even begun. Obviously, we don't want to go down that road. We're going to be looking at how you can build a business case so strong that action becomes just a no-brainer. It's got to be done, and why this is a must-have. It's not a nice to do. This is not the kind of thing you can just think, oh well, that's just too much detail, I won't go into that. I really want to demonstrate to you why it's so critical. We're going to be looking at the number 1 shift that makes the difference between people resisting what you're trying to do, people kind of getting frustrated about change, and actually positively contributing to your solution. We're also going to be looking at the team roles that you really need to ensure are assigned so that your project runs smoothly. And of course, I'll be sharing with case studies from professionals just like you who've implemented impactful projects, and most importantly, gain the reputation of someone who gets results. I will also share with you, we can get your own personalised strategy sessions so that you can get your next project going in the right direction. So one of the things I want to outline is this thought that throughout this training, I'm going to assume that you are really good at what you do and that you love it. Maybe not every aspect of it, but overall you like what you do. That's just the kind of people who like to attend my free trainings. And what that means is you are a rare person. You are a hidden gem worth a lot of money to companies. And you want to know why? Because currently the UK is losing £340 billion, yes, billion, every single year from our economy as a result of people not giving a flying fig about their work. In fact, when you're in your next meeting, look around you. If you've got 10 people in that meeting room, you could be only looking at 1.5 people, not sure which half, whether it's their top, bottom, left or right, but 1.5 people in that room would consider themselves highly motivated. And that is a huge issue for companies all over the UK. And it's something that, as an organisation called Engage for Success, which is a movement which includes all the big wigs, all the big name brands, as well as small and medium and not-for-profit organisations, because they're looking to solve this issue. I volunteer for them because it's an issue close to my heart, having seen the devastating effects that poor treatment work can have on the mental health of somebody I love deeply. And let's be honest, there are a lot of really crappy companies out there. I'm sorry, but it's true. There's some really crappy bosses out there who treat people really badly. So you can't blame those of us who give up caring. It's not about that. But what it does mean is the few and far between people who have managed somehow, despite all the bull, to continue to love what you do and produce great results doing it, well, you are like gold dust and worth every penny of a 5-figure pay rise that it might cost a company to get you on their team. So today's training isn't about landing your next dream role. It's not about your ascending into your next dream job. But when we look at projects, that does set you up nicely for your next move. Today's training is all about helping you to accomplish something so tangible with such clear results that those people who want those same results in their company, they are foaming at the mouth in excitement at the prospect of having you on their team. That's what we're aiming for here. And before we go into the detail, I just want to share a very little bit about what qualifies me to be teaching you these strategies, and most importantly, why I do it and what I'm here for, really. So my mission with my career is to elevate and empower career-oriented people that really care, because I believe that being ambitious and being wholehearted at work, being kind at work, as well as being strategic and effective, don't have to be mutually exclusive. In fact, I believe it can make for an incredibly powerful recipe. And I also strongly believe it's what our places of work desperately need right now. Did you know that only 1 in 5 of us worry about not fulfilling our potential? We have got so much more to give, but it's just being left untapped. It's a total waste. And this wastage is unsustainable because, as I said earlier, we're losing £340 billion every year. So it's just, a really difficult thing to reconcile. Now, of course, my friends, this means something very important for you. Firstly, if you're engaged with your work and your company, and I know you're engaged with your work, otherwise you wouldn't be here, if you can engage effectively with others as well, that is one hell of a competitive advantage. Now, I discovered early on that delivering positive projects, positive impact projects, was what would propel me forward in my career. I started out really small, making the office more efficient in terms of travel costs. That led to a promotion to my first people management role, and in that role I had the opportunity to fine-tune how the team worked in a way that saved money and boosted morale. That led to my first promotion into head of department role, where I had the opportunity to work at a business transformation level. And as my career unfolded, I just kept using projects as my career rocket fuel. And don't get me wrong, I made mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes. And I learned from them. I learned what worked, I learned what didn't work. I learned how to navigate people, how to adapt processes, to stretch the rules when I needed to innovate, and to enforce the rules when I was managing risks. And ultimately, I rinsed and repeated those strategies time and time again, getting quicker results, bigger pay rises and promotions every time, whilst, and this is the most important thing, whilst having fun along the way, meeting my soulmate along the way. So I started off in support roles, as I said. I then moved into operations management. So this, by the way, I like to put some personal pictures so you can get to know me a bit. This is my mum and dad, who are both, just phenomenal champions and really have been a huge influence on me being career orientated myself. Along the way, meeting some fantastic friends. This is Helen. I met her. She was my first boss at the exec search and selection company I worked for about 5 or 6 years I was there. I've also worked in operations management and finance. And then I pivoted and took on a consultancy role at a performance improvement consultancy, working for all sorts of different brands in lots and lots of different industries. And it was there that I was also seconded to Engage for Success and the Employee Engagement Task Force the first time around. So I've been involved with them for about 5 or 6 years. And then I took a step up into senior management for a large organisation, leading their L&D and employee engagement. And now I've got 19 years of real, not theoretical, but real career development and performance improvement project experience under my belt. And my goal is to help people to navigate through today's crazy world of work, providing clear pathways to help you forge a successful career where values such as respect and kindness are celebrated and more importantly, directly connected to top performance at work. And it's a real joy working with clients that are making such a difference with their work and are earning a pretty penny for it too, and quite rightly so. And that's what I want for you, whether you are an emerging talent recently out of uni, or you're an experienced professional looking to take a step up into senior management, we can help. And I wanted just to tap into some of the other benefits of an accelerated career. So my career has given me the opportunity to work with a number of different brands sharing here. So Nationwide, Barclays, Kia, Starlight, Barstool, lots and lots of different organisations, Jaguar Land Rover. I love working with them. But what I'm interested in is, who would you want to work with? What are the company brands that you would want in your role? Who would you want to be able to work with? And then the other thing I have learned, I guess, that you can get benefit from within an accelerated career is it's not just about the money. It is, yes, who you work with, whether that's brands or whether that's the kind of people you want to work with. Hello, Arit, just saying hello. I've just seen you arrive. But also in terms of being able to model and work with people who you really can learn so much from. So I've learned loads through my career, formal learning, self-funded learning, company qualifications and all that, but I've also learned from just experiences of being the only woman on a management team, the youngest woman on a senior management team. But most of all, I've learned a huge amount from David and Nita Clark of Engage for Success, as well as Kathy and Wendy, who are other pivotal members of the team, in terms of stakeholder engagement and stakeholder strategies. So I'm going to talk quite a lot about that in detail later, because it's just one of the most phenomenal learnings is how to, so the reason I'm highlighting Engage for Success is because they are completely, volunteer-led. There's only one paid member of staff, everybody else is completely volunteer-led, and they get all of their resources, energy and funding from either volunteers or from companies donating time and energy and volunteers. And actually that's quite a feat to get all that resources, getting all that energy galvanized into the direction of supporting Engage for Success is pretty phenomenal. So that's why I highlight it as just such a role model that it's been great to learn from. So let's get into the meat of today's training. So everything that I'm going to share with you comes from my program called The Career Leap. I developed this program based on my own career experiences and those of my clients over the last 18 months or so. And I'm giving you as much as I can on this complimentary training, but of course there's so much more behind each element. But I want to dive in and get you some traction on some of the things that you can apply in your career right now, immediately. So, first of all, it is important to understand where you are and where you're trying to get to. And I designed the career quadrants as a way of helping us to do just that by making the journey from one quadrant to another. So it's going from income and impact being the two factors that are really tangible when it comes to work. And as we look into the detail of each of these quadrants, I want you to know I've been in all of these. Everybody pretty much throughout their career will experience at least some time period in all of these different quadrants. So I've named them after astrological, cosmological qualities, because I love the scientific study of the stars. They really inspire me, so it won't be a surprise to know that that's how I've named them. So the waning moon is called so because its illuminated area is decreasing, and the moon acts as a buffer essentially to the Earth, drawing meteors to it so the Earth escapes the hits. Now, when we're in this quadrant, not only are we at the sharp end, possibly taking the hits for our company, but we're also quite rather possibly bored. Everything feels the same. Everything's very routine and cyclical, and our full potential is just not being tapped into. You know you've got more to give. So this is kind of your lights going out, you're a bit bored. You're not really being recognised to your full potential. The black hole, scientifically, is a region of space that's got a gravitational field so intense that no matter, no radiation, nothing can escape, and it just gets sucked down without a trace. Now, research tells us that the #1 biggest stressor for professionals, the things that get stressed out, is not making progress. It's feeling blocked. It's feeling like we're walking through treacle when we're trying to get work done. In these situations, we might be earning a lot of money, but perhaps we've got very little time for our personal life. I've been there. It's absolutely horrible. It's the kind of place where everything feels like it's moving really fast around you, but you're just not getting anywhere. And you can feel like you're getting the life drained out of you, and it's just not a great place to be. In fact, this is where our health and relationships, they can all get compromised and sacrificed. So it's not a nice place to be in. And essentially, you're going nowhere fast, it's draining, and it can lead to burnout and illness. Then we've got the right-hand side of the quadrants, which are the not much nicer place to be. And now the Northern Lights are a spectacle to behold. They are seen in the sky for miles around. They are beautiful, incredibly graceful gift from nature. I've been in this quadrant 3 times in terms of career progression, and it manifests as several steps up over a period of a few years. This is where 5-figure pay rises and the promotions that you want are all possible, but it might happen over a reasonably short period of time. So in this quadrant, you're shining bright. Success comes with ease, but it also comes with grace and a very kind of natural, gentle ascension. And then you've got the shooting star. This is where you're taking one big step up all in one go. You're making a big impact and you're making a big income. And it's fast and it's furious and it's exciting and it can be a hell of a lot of fun too. This is where making a big impact, 5-figure pay rises, getting them all in one go is absolutely possible. I've been in this quadrant 3 times and it is just the most fun. If you pick your timing carefully, it's kind of not for the faint-hearted or anyone's already quite stretched, but if you pick your timing right, then there's nothing quite like it. Personally, I like to vacillate between residing in the shooting star and the Northern Lights quadrants. That tends to be just what I find most sustainable in terms of energy. And so again, the shooting star is all about fast, fun, furious path to success, but your timing needs to be right. So which quadrant, I want to hear from you in the questions field. Which quadrant are you currently in? Which one do you want to move into and how urgent is that for you? So drop me a note in the questions, or for those people who are listening on this replay later down the line, then you can email me at q&a@aligodding.com. So now I'm going to take a little look and see who we have got. And I'm just seeing, here we go. Yes, okay, so I've got quite a few people saying they're in a waning moon. Sorry about that, it's not great, is it? I've got a lot of people saying, I've got 3 or 4 saying you're in the Northern Lights and wanting to get into a shooting star. This is good, okay. And I've got 1 person saying you're already in a shooting star. Awesome. High five to you is what I say. So I'm just flicking because I've got a couple of people, I don't know if they can read the questions or accept the questions. So I'm just going to, if you're struggling with questions, just so you know, there is a little orange arrow which you press that, it will bring down the drop-down list, and then when you get to the drop-down list, scroll down and you will see questions, and then you pop your question in there or your response to my question. So hopefully that covers everybody, but I'm seeing quite a few, quite a few people saying waning moon was the most common, and I've got somebody saying not working. Oh no, what's not working? Hi George, thank you very much for your comment. Can I ask what's not working? The questions. Aha, maybe it's working now because I can see your answers. So hopefully that is working now. So you're tapping in your questions now, which I can see. Sorry, you're tapping in your comments, which is perfect. And so yeah, you're doing it in the right place. I can see them. Hurrah. So let me know, George, where are you and where would you like to be? Are you in a black hole? Are you in a waning moon? Are you in the Northern Lights, or are you already riding a shooting star? Let me know. And whilst I'm waiting for that, I will just move on and say, yes, let's have a think about these mistakes, these common mistakes that will doom your project before it's begun. And essentially, really what we're thinking about is these will leave us in the left-hand quadrants. These are the kinds of mistakes that we typically often all make that will leave us in either a black hole or in a waning moon. And so moving forward, so I'm going to break them down into each section. So the number one mistake that we often all make is about aiming for total control and perfection. So the beautiful thing about projects is that you don't have to be a people manager to lead projects. You don't have to be a people manager to lead people within projects. And it gives you the opportunity to demonstrate your management and leadership approach. So often we're taught that to make something work, we need to have this kind of tight control and aim for perfection. And it might have worked in the industrial era where we were dealing with big plant machinery, but when you're dealing with ideas, control and perfectionism are real killers. It can make people freeze. It can make people really uncomfortable moving forward if they fear your reaction. If they think they're not perfect, or worse, they can just do what you ask without question, without flagging to you any issues as they arise. And I learned this lesson well in one of my first projects. In fact, it was the first project when I was leading other people to deliver it, and that's a really tricky transition to make when you're essentially giving over control of your performance to a team. It's pretty scary. Anyway, so I had just been made the manager of this team that had previously been my peers, and I was organising quite a small project. It was this exec search and selection firm, and we were organising various files because everything was hard copy. There were no computers. I know, that's scary, and it just shows my age, but anyway. So I was determined. I'd just been made this manager, so I was like, I'm determined I'm going to make this a really high impact project. And I was really essentially micromanaging the team. I hadn't realised it. I was just doing what I thought was necessary to get the job done to the standard I wanted it at. Unsurprisingly, the team revolted. Can't say I blame them. And they've been my peers one day, and there was I, 23 years old or young, and you know, some of them were older than me, and they kind of thought, who's this girl bossing me about? And at the same time, thank goodness, I had hired my first coach, and she taught me about giving others responsibility in the truest sense of the word, allowing people the space to have the ability to respond. And essentially what happened was I decided to take a different approach, to give the team the outline, the direction, the parameters, and then stand back and let them get on with it. Essentially what that meant was that if they had any questions or needed support, I was absolutely there, but I just was, and I was interested, but I wasn't meddling. And that was what I was aiming for anyway. I'm not perfect, and it was the first time I'd given control of my performance to the hands of my team. So, you know, but they nailed it. They really did. But they delivered before the target date. The quality check showed that they'd done a great job. So being able to stand back was a big thing. And this project was what set me up for my first head of job. And I caught the attention of the bosses not because I delivered a perfect project, but because I had galvanized the team to deliver a great piece of work. And later, when I worked in consultancy, I would always spend time with both clients and employees, because their input, yes, their input directly was really important and made a massive difference to the control of work. But it was just about the process of how we got there that was just as much an important factor in determining the success of a program. Now, I have seen it in organisations when I've been in-house working for a company, when some department, someone has revealed, ta-da, you know, this really wonderful thing they've been working on for the last year, only to find they come up with huge resistance and the project fails simply because they didn't involve the right people at the right time in the development process. So that psychological impact in terms of getting people involved and on side at the right point is really huge. And my role model, one of my role models, David McLeod, who I showed you earlier, he has said this phrase that has stuck in my mind. He said, people don't remember or even care much for what you said. They remember how you made them feel along the way. And I think that's a really important one when it comes to this number one shift. So the number one shift is simply about stakeholder engagement. It is your biggest competitive advantage by far, is how you engage and relate to other people you work with. Stakeholder engagement in most organisations, there are millions, multiple stakeholders to engage with to get anything done. So if you don't get this right, you can end up with totally preventable problems. Issues ranging from not understanding the risks and issues that could be sorted before you go live, through to having people actively sabotage what you're trying to do. So what I do is teach you exactly how to map your stakeholders to identify what's their driving position in relation to what you're trying to achieve, and teaching these strategies to deal with each type of stakeholder, whether they're practical, whether they're political, or whether they've got a personal challenge around what you're trying to achieve, whether they're an advocate, fantastic, or whether they're a blocker, and of course how to deal with that. But there is one group of stakeholders that's regularly misunderstood and poorly engaged with, and that is employees. And of course, I mentioned them earlier, but I 100% recommend you check out if you have got employee engagement challenges that you would like to learn how to deal with more effectively, then 100%, there's loads of free resources, tools, and everything on this website, engageforsuccess.org. And what I do is I then specialise separately in what I teach people is focusing on engaging with those other stakeholders, your peers, your seniors, and other specialist function suppliers, etc., etc. And I do that through this approach. I really want to share something practical you can take away today and apply in your career. So this is a model I came up with, having modelled all these kind of masters, if you like, at this. I'd been implementing it in my own career and testing it and tweaking it. And then as I was teaching other people, that's how this, my approach called approaching stakeholders with grace emerged. So essentially what we're looking at here is a 5-step process. So first of all, you are looking at gathering information so that you can be really clear about the individuals and the groups that are relevant to your project. Then you want to rate those groups of people and individuals, and you want to rate them in relation to their influence on your project and their position in relation to your project. Now, my experience is typically there is very little neutrality in organisations these days. Because of the amount of change we're all experiencing, it polarizes people, and essentially people will either be against or for what you're doing, typically. Not always, but typically. Even if they say they're neutral, generally they're not. And the reason being because there's such limited resources in organisations that either what you're doing will help what they're trying to achieve, or it could be perceived that what you're going to do could take, whether it's resources, time, attention, manpower, whatever it is. If there's a potential that what you're trying to do could draw away resources from somebody else, even if ostensibly they are for what you're trying to do, they could still be against it in reality, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So we really look at rating those people, and then we look at understanding the angle, what's driving them, what's going on behind the scenes, what's the driving force behind their position. So is that personal, political, or professional? So just to give you 3 examples, I was in an organisation once where I was being asked to make a recommendation about something, and somebody clearly wanted to influence that recommendation, and they said to me, well, firstly, they ambushed me in a meeting about something completely different, and then they tried to kind of really dig into the detail of that particular topic. And then they said something really revealing. And what's interesting is people cannot help but reveal themselves in what they say and what they do. And this person said, they've made their bed so they can lie in it. And they were saying, about in relation to this piece of work, and that I was being asked to make a recommendation on. And what that revealed to me was that her position on it was political. She wasn't thinking about the end user. She wasn't thinking about the experience of employees. She was thinking about a political point she wanted to make to somebody. So obviously, having understood that, that enabled me to choose more consciously how to approach that situation. Another example of, or an example of a practical blocker is one where there was a big change being made in the organisation, and this person flagged an issue, a risk, essentially. Well, actually, it was a risk. It wasn't an issue yet, but it did need to get addressed. And they were really quite frustrated about it because nobody had been listening to them. And I kind of got involved in this project halfway through, and I could basically see this person kind of stamping up and down. And so I thought, I'll go and have a chat, find out what's really going on. And everyone was like, oh, don't listen to them, they're just a bit whingy. And I thought, I'm not sure about that, let me listen. And when I understood what their concern was, and that it was a genuine concern, and that if that concern was addressed, and it did need to be, that person, because they were part of it just so happens they were part of a union. Now, some people will say that unions will be behaving very strategically, and often they are, but in this instance it was genuinely very practical. And as soon as that situation was addressed, this person became one of the biggest advocates. Unbelievable, the turnaround. And then the final example of somebody who is a personal blocker or advocate, I was at an organisation, and I had what I call, oh, excuse my French, I'm a bit sweary, sorry. I had one of these things that people call a shitball email at one of my team. They sent this really horrible email to this member of my team. She just launched a piece of work. It was fantastic. And she got this horrible email from this person from another part of the business. And I was like, what's going on here? And so I had a chat with this woman, and I said, had a chat, built up the rapport first, and then addressed this issue. And basically, then day, if you've got an issue, then either pick up the phone or speak to me, or don't send those kind of emails. Anyway, so it's quite interesting, her response. And again, she said something like, well, when you first started, it took you 6 weeks to even come and see me. And I thought, wow, my jaw nearly dropped to the floor, because I thought, wow, that's what's really going on. She had a personal issue because I hadn't bowed to the Queen Bee soon enough. And so again, that insight enabled me to know and choose different strategies as to how I was going to deal with that situation. So that's just an example of personal, practical, or political, the angle which they can come from. And of course, as I've just explained, though, when you have that insight, you can choose which groups you're going to focus on. And you need to choose carefully so that you can ensure you maintain your energy and you don't get too preoccupied or drained by the energy vampires. So the view I take on this is 80-20. 80% of your time you want to spend with your advocates and your supporters, and only 20% of your time do you want to spend on blockers and really, trying to kind of either move them to be advocates or manage them and contain them. Which of course then leads us on to engaging with people in a way that's going to yield the best results for everyone involved, and how you go about engaging those people depending on where they're at. Obviously, this is all contextual. This all depends on who you're meeting, where they're coming from. All those kinds of things need to be taken into account before you decide on your engagement strategies. So I just want to give you an example of Beth. So Beth is a content developer. She works for a performance improvement consultancy, and she is writing a lot of stuff for big brands that needs to help change behaviours and important ways of working. And she was identified as top talent and had been invited to participate in a talent development programme. And she'd been previously working on this project that she found quite frustrating, quite draining, and a bit of an uphill battle. So she came to me and we started working on the engaging stakeholders with grace approach, which we looked at in detail. And then she had these clear strategies for engaging the more challenging stakeholders, which made it a lot easier for her. And in fact, she has dropped me a note the other day, which is quite interesting, to say that one of the most challenging stakeholders she had within the context of this specific project for a later project became a really critical ally. And that's the power of when you engage stakeholders and approach stakeholders with grace, you can build yourself up a really powerful set of allies, advocates, supporters that you can then activate during other circumstances, other situations. So, mistake number 2 is feeling rushed. Now, they say time is money, time waits no man, and there are instances where speed is important and a sense of urgency is required. But if you make everything urgent, you will gain a reputation as the boy who cried wolf. Another vital aspect about time pressure is one that it's the lead driver, essentially, of us walking over other people in a way that others see, they take note of it, and they will think twice about working with you next time. I don't know if anyone here has read any of Malcolm Gladwell's books. This particular piece of research, it was brought to my attention by one of his books. I think it was Blink, but it could have been one of the other ones. Anyway, in it he described an experiment by John Darley and a colleague, Daniel Bateson, who conducted a study with theological students, people we might assume would be particularly likely to help someone in need. And the researchers sent a number of theological students to a building across campus to deliver a sermon on the Good Samaritan. And they told them exactly which route to follow to get to this place. And some of the students were told that they had plenty of time to get to the building across the way, and others were told, you're already late, you better hurry up. And then on their way to deliver this sermon, each of them passed a man who was sitting in a doorway, basically coughing, spluttering, obviously needing help. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Almost two-thirds of the seminarians offered help to the man if they were in no rush. Only 10% offered help if they were late. Now, of course, if you only knew that a particular seminarian helped and another one didn't, you wouldn't have a very favourable impression of the person who didn't offer assistance. You'd have a more favourable impression of the person who did. And it wouldn't necessarily occur to you that a factor like time and feeling like they were running late, feeling rushed, would make somebody, a theological student, teaching about the Good Samaritan, you wouldn't think that such a small factor would make them walk over that person, literally. And in fact, when you describe this setup to people, they don't think that would have any bearing on the situation at all, late versus not. But obviously that isn't the case. Our experiences of time and whether we feel pressured or not has a huge influence on how we treat people. And so we consequently, we might bowl in with a brilliant project idea, but clearly take no care of the people. If we don't take care of those people side of things, then people can smell it a mile off and they'll run a mile. And before you know it, you've got issues with unions, or you've got employee forum, challenging you at every turn, or just the team not playing ball. These are all consequences that can doom your project before it's even begun, if we allow ourselves to have this unnecessary sense of time pressure, or we put that unnecessary sense of time pressure on other people. So, what is the solution? Well, there's a two-part solution, I believe, to this. So one of the solutions is to, first of all, always under-promise and over-deliver to your boss or whoever your stakeholders are. But you also want to ensure you have clear plans always build in slippage to those plans. You want to have clear timescales, and you want to have clear risks and issues so that you can manage those things effectively. The second part of this solution, though, is to make sure you're balancing it with people needs, never forgetting that the people we're interacting with are human beings, not human resources, and that we're all operating in this ever-changing world right now. So your plans will show you where you have got slippage, and it'll also show you where you really, really don't have slippage, so you can differentiate between what's urgent and what's just important. You can also differentiate between a risk, something that might happen but hasn't yet, and an issue, something that has actually come to fruition and needs addressing this instant, as an example. And you can respond accordingly. And this allows you to treat people as human beings. And when you do that, it allows that incredible level of support to come to fruition. So speaking of teams, then it's really important to get your team roles nailed. So you really want to make sure you've got a team sponsor, ideally somebody in the exec team, or at the least somebody very senior that cares about the success of what you're doing and that will help clear any barriers along the way, whether they're political barriers or practical issues. You want that person to sign off your project scope or your project charter so that they're putting their name on it, and they're putting their name on the line and saying, yes, this is going to happen, I want it to happen, and they're going to support it. You also then need to have a project director role. This is the person who sets the visions, the parameter of the project, the scope, who would write the business case. And this quite likely will be you. Now, you may well choose, it might well be that you're working for a smaller company and that you need to wear several hats, or it might be that you're working in a large company and you've got very specific individuals for each area. But in whatever instance you are in, just be clear about the different roles that need to be undertaken, even if it's all within your scope, if that makes sense. So the project manager is somebody who is managing the delivery. They're making sure the timescales are being met, or if they're not, they're raising the risks and issues. They might be escalating those things to the project director where required. And they're coordinating all the other aspects that would be involved in the project, whether that's individual people, whether that's the departments, or whether it's just, you know, within their own small team. So those things that you would want to think about are communications. Who is going to be making sure that the right people know about what they need to know about? What technology do you need to use? Most times, at the very least, there's something about company intranet that, you know, something might need to be placed upon to allow people access to, whether it's a new policy, whether it's a report you're publishing, whatever that might look like. How is content going to get developed? Who's going to do branding and design to make sure that it's in alignment with company branding? Does it need testing? Is it something new that needs to be tested out, beta test, if you like? Who needs to sign it off? How is it going to be ensured that the execution process for making it go live in the appropriate timeframes is going to happen? And the most missed role I see that gets missed most often is this continual improvement process, the new version. So many times something fantastic gets launched in a business, and then there's no continual improvement process, and that thing just gets left, and essentially within a few months it's completely obsolete because it's just out of date, because nobody's keeping up to date. So that's one of the key things that I found when we make sure that we include that, it just gives your piece of work, whatever it is you're producing, much more longevity, and it also gives your stakeholders much more comfort that there's a sustainability in whatever it is you are working on in terms of your project. So as an example, this is a case study of Roz. She was distracted. I mean, she's an amazing woman, by the way. She is planning, delivering projects all the time. She's great at engaging stakeholders. I know this because before she became a client, we worked together at another large organisation as peers. However, none of us are immune to a knock in confidence, and after being immersed in a kind of micro culture created by a really small number of people in an organisation she was at, she found it really distracting and it really affected her confidence. So we worked together so she had a clear next steps and was able to focus on the task at hand whilst protecting herself from negativity, and that made a big impact for her, being able to really be able to drive her project forward and to make it a success. So the third mistake, people say just get on with it, you know, just hurry up. There's all this demand for speed, but in that demand for speed can come issues around weak rationale. I like to think of myself as a woman of action, but one of the things I'm most proud of in my career, and I'll never get any credit for it because it was in fact to prevent something from happening, something that I knew was putting people at untold risk, unacceptable risk, and the business at unacceptable risk. Now, how did I help prevent that disaster? I was pressing for a business case and risks and issues log that I hoped existed, but I suspected strongly that they didn't. And in highlighting those unacceptable business risks to the right people and ensuring that they got on the agenda of the top team. Now, if indeed someone like me has a genuine concern that risks and issues have either not been acknowledged nor planned for, that the potential gain doesn't outweigh the losses, if that's the case, if you have a business case, a robust business case, you're able to reassure people that your project is well thought through, and if you're willing to add to the risks and issues and update them and kind of address them as they're presented, that can make a massive difference. And in a business charged by change, as I said earlier, it creates polarity and little neutrality. So even if somebody ostensibly agrees with what you're trying to do is a good thing, if they perceive that money or attention on your project may reduce the resources they have access to for theirs, you may just find you have a saboteur that you need to rebuff, in which instance you need a sound business case. So what does a sound business case look like? What does it include? Well, essentially it builds the case for what you're trying to achieve. You want to do it in a way which is relatively neutral. So you might say, let's just give you an example. We need to have a new performance. Let's just say the problem is that there are no real discussions, no quality discussions happening between managers and employees. And there are several things we could do. We could send communications out to wag our fingers and say, yes, you should have better conversations. We could penalise people, not allow them to have part of their bonus if they haven't recorded their conversations, or we could provide them with some more tools and resources to help them have better conversations. Let's just say they're the three, that's the problem, and here are the three solutions. And then the results that we're expecting, that we want, is to have probably productivity gains. But for another project, it could be savings in cost and time. It could be return on investment in terms of financials. It could be loss prevention. It could be reduction in risk. It could be revenue growth indicators. There's lots of different things you might want to highlight in your results. So far you've outlined the problem. You've outlined all the different possible solutions, or at least a selection of. You've highlighted the results that could be achieved, and then you're highlighting your recommended solution and why you're recommending it, because it's most likely to produce the results, positive ROI that you're looking for. So it highlights the costs, the benefits, and draws a conclusion demonstrating, you know, what the way forward is and why you're recommending that. And moving on from the business case, so business case is part of the solution. The other part is having the confidence behind it. So some people, and the confidence behind it in terms of presenting it, sharing it, giving other people your expertise and your views in a public forum. And some people just really don't like that, and they feel that this kind of imposter syndrome where they think, oh, who am I to be doing that? Or they just hate the thought of speaking. I think it is one of the top 2 or 3 most feared things we have to do as humans, is speak in public. And we all experience this from time to time. Now, having a sound business case gives you a sense of confidence and courage that can be required to speak publicly about what you're doing, but sometimes it is just your confidence, inner confidence, that can slip away. And this was the case for Julie. So Julie came to me. She's incredibly successful senior manager at Sky Sports News. She's driven, she's ambitious, she's proud of her achievements, but she was really reluctant to speak publicly, and she knew that that was as a result of internal barriers, and as a result of it was holding her back in her career. And so we worked together to help her conquer that fear of public speaking. She was able to speak eloquently at a filmed event. The CEO, this is how respected she is in Sky, the CEO was interviewing her on film to show her as an exemplar for other people as to what an engaging manager looks like at Sky, and as an example of their values brought to life. So, you know, absolutely phenomenal, but she was kind of terrified about the thought of it. So we worked together, got her really feeling confident about how she could articulate and respond to this interview. And she received accolades from many of her peers, from those people who were senior to her, which really said she had grace and presence while speaking, which was, you know, she was just blown away by that. And it meant that later she had the courage to then lead a senior networking event, top level speakers, bringing men and women from across the organisation to discuss how the company could progress their diversity agenda. And you can see how that would then open up opportunities for her more widely in her career. So the one thing I want to remember, or want you to remember, is that it's not your fault. We've been taught that these mistakes are the way to do business, and we should be taught otherwise, but we very rarely are, at least until we've made some painful missteps anyway. So I want you to be able to charge forward in your career with confidence, competency, which is why I created the Career Leap, which I talked about earlier. So just to describe in a little bit more detail what it's about. What it is it allows you to get what I call this accelerated career cycle into momentum. At any point in your career, you might step on this at the point of accomplish, which is what we're talking about, projects, or you might step on at the point when you're ready to ascend and land your next dream job, or you might step on at the point when you're really in a new role and you really want to kind of nail it and make that first impression in those first 100 days. So, this is a secret really to accelerating your career with grace and ease, rather than achieving it at the cost of your personal life, burning out, selling out, sucking up, all those other things that we don't want to do. And when you master this, that's when you're able to do it naturally and easily. So each part of this, I'm going to walk you through each of these steps. I call them the career accelerators because they do just that. They enable you to leap forward in your career faster and more elegantly than you might have thought possible otherwise. So the exact steps are the 3 phases of the ascend in your career. Now, obviously, we're not focused on this today, but I want to just touch on it so you can kind of see how it all fits together. So essentially, I support you in inviting the right opportunities into your career by envisioning the role that you want, positioning yourself to be the ideal candidate that can deliver the results that they need. So you can see now why the accomplished side is so important. And then promoting yourself in a discreet and charming way, of course, to the right people. And then you want to select your next employer. Too many people see the recruitment process as a one-way street, with employers having all the choice and power. It's just simply not the case. And they have, as we've talked about earlier, limited, engaged and engaging candidates to pick from. So as you see, it's actually a lot of choices in your hands. So teaching you how to select your next employer. And then finally, of course, you want to make sure that you can live up to the fantastic impression that you make before being hired. And, you know, we've only got limited time to do that. So we want to make sure that that's all well planned for and just delivered effortlessly as you arrive. And then when you adapt in your career, this is more about the kind of inner work. those of us who really care about what we do, we are often more vulnerable to our environment than we realise. And the nature of work these days is that it is full of continual change, which can really drive some interesting behaviours and create some cultures and dynamics which can be somewhat draining. So I work with people to protect themselves from negative environments. One of the most important elements of this is a self-care safety net, ensuring that you build in time for you to build your energy so you can counter any draining energy factors. And also I guide clients to create a personal protection practice. We also want to make sure that we release and let go of any former experiences, perhaps at your last job or maybe a specific person and their behaviour and how it affected you. More and more, I'm finding that people's work experiences, especially those of conscious professionals, those who really believe in what they're doing, our contribution, the mission, heart-driven, heart-centered people, one of our downfalls is that we take everything that happens into us and we can take it in and we can believe things that just aren't true. These can be really limiting things like, I'm no good at this, or I could never do that, or I failed at this, therefore, ... And equally, it's also important to forgive others and yourself for any such experiences, and most importantly to celebrate your successes as well and allow yourself to grow into the next best version of yourself. This is really ensuring you're primed to grow into that new you, how you want to be perceived, how you want to be, and how you want to get there. And one of the strategies I talk about and share with you in this area is about the success squared element, which is all about getting your success team around you right. So that being you obviously, your coach, your mentor and your sponsor, and really making sure you've got that team in place ready to support your growth. And then of course we've got accomplish in your career, which is really about the practical, the deliverable stuff. So I want to show you the exact steps. So first of all, engaging with the right people, distinguishing what's important, focusing on one key area. They're the three absolute critical steps preparing to succeed. Then we need to develop an elegant solution by proposing a way forward. Now I've talked about how to do that in terms of getting your business case, planning to make it happen, and adapting according to input from others. So we talked about how to stakeholder engagement by getting their input and then adjusting things accordingly, which is all about delivering on your promises. So this is conquering barriers, whether they're practical, real, outside of you barriers, or whether they're internal, perceptual barriers. Activating others to help you. So again, this is a lot about the engagement piece and enjoying the process. And that's again a bit more inner work of kind of letting go and allowing yourself to really enjoy what you're doing and overcoming some of the issues that come up along the way. So just to give you an example of Jenny. So Jenny came to me, she's a senior manager at a global pharmaceutical company, and she came to me feeling really happy, but a little bit overwhelmed. She'd been offered a big new role in a big new company, fantastic. And this very same week, her boyfriend had proposed to her. So happy times, but she was unsure if she could keep the wedding plans on track, the impact she wanted in her new role, all without allowing her husband to be. So we worked on ensuring she had clear plans in place. Those plans that I shared with you earlier, the project plan, the timeframes, the risks and issues, as well as clear stakeholder maps and stakeholder engagement approaches. So she was able to work on those plans, put them in place, had support through the entire period, and she had a note within, I think it was like 6 weeks, she had a note from the very top leadership, because she'd had a really big impact in a very specific way, helping them avoid a particular risk. And so she was singled out for praise for that. And then more recently, she sent me an email or LinkedIn message saying this is very recently now, she just had her appraisal and she had been given a nice pay rise. She'd been given her bonus that she could have acquired, she was able to get all of it, and she'd been given a really good rating as well, which stood her in good stead for the long-term future. So that was phenomenal to hear. I love hearing what happens in the long term. So what I'd really love to know is, have you learned at least one new strategy that you can implement in your next project? So drop me a little note in the questions box and just tell me yes or no. I'm just going to have a little look. And I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Hurrah, hurrah. Because that is why I do these sessions. That's you know why that's what makes me happy, really, is to know that I'm making a difference and helping you get those strategies under your belt. So I did say I would also let you know where you can get your own personalized strategy session. So at this point, you might be thinking, that's ace, I've got all I need, I'm ready to rock. And if that's you, I'm absolutely thrilled. Your next step is to go implement, go out there, go get them, and let me know how you get on. And you can drop me a note to ali@aligolding.com. I love hearing from past webinar participants about how they've applied what we cover. But there'll also be some of you who'll be thinking, I'd like a little bit of help to apply what I've learned to my career, or I want to take this a bit deeper. I've got questions about some of the principles and strategies I've shared, and you really want to know your exact next step. So if that's you, then I want to tell you about the chance you can have for a free personalised strategy session. Now, I only do a handful of these each month, and mostly they're paid, but I do include some specifically for people who've participated in this webinar, so you don't get left behind. You have invested the time and energy to be here today, so I know you're serious about your career and making a bigger impact and income with your work. So I have an invitation for 5 of you to join me for a complimentary one-to-one strategy session. And this is an invitation that's really for those of you who are committed and ready to implement a project that's really going to make a difference. So if that's you, this is all you have to do, is go to connectwithali.com, and essentially what you will get and what you'll create. So I'm going to put this time aside essentially to support you, and I'm 100% committed to ensuring you walk away with something really tangible that you can implement immediately in your career and in your project, and really set you up for that next great project. And I fully anticipate that some of you who join me on a session like this will have all you need after the session to move forward, and there'll be some who might want to work together to take that work deeper and to implement it in your projects. And I do have a program that, if I think it's a good fit, I'll tell you about. But if not, or if you don't need that support, then I would just point you in the direction of any other resources that I think could be of service to you. So just to give you an idea, Lisa, as somebody who's done one of these sessions with me and what it can get for you, Lisa came to me feeling a bit stagnant in her current role. She didn't have a clear vision of how or in which direction to step forward in. And in our time together, we were able to identify some high-profile projects, and I was able to provide a framework for her approaching them that would enable her to get visibility and growth opportunities that she needed. So if you wanted to grab your spot, this is all that happens. You go to connectwithali.com, it looks like this, and when you click this button, you'll have a very quick, I think it's like 3 or 4 questions I'll ask you on a form, which just enables me to focus our time together so I can serve you most powerfully. And then you basically go to my little calendar and you can book your slot. I'm just going to open it up now to questions before closing. I know it's just after 3, but I'm absolutely fine to stay on for at least another 15 minutes or so. So anyone who has questions, then just chat them into the questions box, and I'll take a little look. So I'm saying, what slots do you have available? So the slots I put aside, they do, I think actually it's Wednesday and Thursday, but just check on the link, because they do change dependent on 1 month. What will we cover? We will look at, basically we look at where you are now, where you want to get to, and the next most important step for you in your project. Hopefully that helps. Can it help me if I'm quite early on in my career? Yes. Whether you're just starting out or you're working in a senior role, the session is designed to be, it's a structured session, but the content is very much driven by you. So yeah, absolutely feel free to apply, whether you're early days or, you know, quite experienced, that's absolutely fine. Now what somebody's saying, you mentioned You mentioned 5-figure pay rise. Can you expand? Yes, but to do that, I just need to get some slides from another webinar that I give. So let me just pause you for a moment. I'm just going to find them. Won't take a mo. So let's just bring them up. Okay, found them. I think that's right, showing. Anyway, okay, so so this is from another complimentary training, Ascend with Ali. Now, despite the fact that it's in many people's interests that you don't think promotions, big promotions and big pay rises are real, and that actually they want you to think that they're about as real as the Bigfoot. However, as I said earlier, I'm assuming that you are shit hot at what you do and that you love it. Maybe not every aspect, but overall you enjoy what you do. And that means, as I said earlier, that you are a rare commodity worth a lot of money. As I said, 340 billion is being lost every year from the UK economy. We are something like 6 out of 7 of the leading Western industrial nations. We're, you know, not very productive at the moment in comparison to our competitors, if you like, in the European field. And like I said, there's a whole movement of organisations working towards the fact that this needs to change and this is not sustainable. So people are aware of it. And I am here to say that big promotions and pay rises absolutely exist. I know it from my own personal experience. I've seen plenty of others who also have taken big steps up in their career, stepping into the relevant quadrant. But don't just take my word for it. There's also been some research done by the Hay Group on what they call champagne promotions, which is like 2 levels up. I call it the career leap, but it doesn't really matter what language. What's the point is that they're real and that they exist, and it's not just me saying it. So don't get disheartened about the fact that the UK, we only have an average of 32% increase in a champagne promotion, because we do have far better health and safety, workers' rights, and so many more other things that, quite honestly, I'd rather have than just a wad of cash. And after all, 32% in real terms is actually very attractive. Let me just share with you what it looks like. So if you were earning 30k, then you would be looking at an increase of nearly 10k. If you were earning 50k to begin with, then you'd be looking at a 16k increase. If you're looking at, you know, 80k already, you'd be looking at a 25k increase. This is the reality of what a big champagne pay rise, or what I call career leap, look like. So let's just look at that from another dimension. So incremental pay rises are, so you can already see how important it is for you to get your salary increased as much as possible, as early as possible, because of course that has a big impact. But if you are looking at a career leap, and actually I'm only basing this on the Northern Lights, and what I mean by that is a pay rise value of 10k in total over every 3 years. Actually very conservative, because we know that it can be much more, but I want to keep this illustration conservative and not overstate the potential impact. But what could this mean over 20 years? Well, it's quite considerable. It would have a value of over between £800,000 and £820,000, which is between 580 and 656, in addition to what you would have been earning taking the incremental approach. So let's call it 600k value to you over 20 years of your career. And that's what no one else is telling you. So my question I always like to ask people at this point is, what would you do with that? What would you do if you can earn an extra 600k over the course of your career? Would you pay off your mortgage? Would you travel the world? Would you take care of your aging parents? Or something else entirely? I always love to hear. So yeah, feel free to let me know. And on that point, I think I'm going to just check back on the questions and see if there are any more. And I can't see any more. So on that note, I am going to say thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you. I really want to say how much I acknowledge you for taking the time out. I know this webinar is free, but the time, the energy and the effort of prioritising this today is big. Everyone's busy. So I really honour you for being here and for taking the time to invest in your career development today. And on that note, I will sign off and say I hopefully will see you very soon, and take care for now.